We are now rolling. Come on, Vic. Let's do it.
In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie.
Hello, folks. Welcome to another live stream episode of In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie podcast. If you are watching this on YouTube, you maybe saw a glimpse of me before our illustrious intro came on. But thank you very, very much for tuning in. As always, today is a very special day. Guess what? We're indoors. We're stuck indoors with some time on our hands. And who could I bring on? How about some friends? How about some legends? How about somebody that was the original bass player of the Alice Cooper Band? Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Mr. Dennis Dunaway. Hello, Dennis.
Hey, Ryan.
How's it going, friend?
I love your new intro. Your show's getting slick.
It's because we actually have Vic Chalfant behind the dials. He's putting in all the overlays. He's putting in he'll highlight some comments, and a lot of it's this new platform. Trust me, I'm still in my son's bedroom, even though it looks like New York City. We're shooting this all out of bedrooms across the world. It's not even.
That's a good picture of New York City with nothing moving, because that's how it is right now.
Wow, you have a pretty good backdrop yourselves. I think you picked the right backdrop for the right show right now, right?
Well, you're the one that told me to have albums in the background.
Yeah. You weren't supposed to say that.
I like gold albums better than bowling trophies because they're easier to hang on the wall.
See? Good to know. Fun fact. Are you an actual bowler? Can you bowl?
No, because I don't want to win any trophies.
Well, one thing that Alice does like to talk about you, he always brings it up more in the golf course. It wasn't bowling, but it was track. That's how you and Alice Cooper met on the track field, because you were both track stars. Or were you really track stars, or is that Alice embellishing it? Not letting the truth get in the way of a good story.
No. Actually, our division was undefeated. We were pretty heavy duty. Alice was a good runner. He was, a year below me. So he was junior varsity when I was varsity. But I talked him into coming on the team, and that bonded us. And I think it had a lot to do with the keep going no matter what attitude that the Alice Cooper group had in the early days.
Really? Like the Chariots of Fire theme? Was that your...
No.
Chariots of Fire.
No, actually, we were singing Beatles songs and making our own lyrics that had to do with track. Last night I ran 4 laps for my coach.
So this
but
obviously...
let's face it, if you were going to sing, that didn't last long before you were just huffing and puffing.
Yeah, definitely not on the track. That what you're doing.
Yeah.
I used to hate that in high school for me, when they'd also, every year they'd make you do some sort of tests that would, are you in shape? You have to have some sort of requirement level. And then I'd have to run. I'd be tired like the first time around. But good. Thank goodness for long distance runners like Dennis Dunaway. And make the world a better place.
We ran a lot of miles together out through the desert and everything. My best mile was 4:36, and my best half mile was the same day. It was 2:06.
That's a good day. That's a really good day on the track.
Actually, it was fueled by me thinking that this girl that I really liked was there, and it turned out she wasn't even there.
Did someone whisper it in your ear right before the does track use the gun shot, right? The pistol shot, or do they do that anymore?
Yeah, but now they have a buzzer kind of thing. But when they had the gun, you had to look at the gun, because usually he wasn't up close. So you wanted to watch the smoke, because if you waited for the sound, other guys already took off.
The speed of the speed of light is faster than the speed of sound. How about
that? Exactly. And both of them were faster than us.
This is all happening in Phoenix, Arizona, right? You guys growing up, that's where you sort of cut your teeth with the band. That's
Yeah.
where it formed. But before that, you were born, I'm reading, in Oregon. So
Yeah.
that's where the true Dennis Dunaway, sort of hippie, how would you say, not hippie, but more bohemian Dennis Dunaway that I know. Maybe that's where that was, the seeds were sown.
Well, you know, Oregon is known for tree huggers and all of that, but I was pretty young when we moved to Phoenix. So we went from the wet climate to the arid climate, and readjusted. When I was, you know, I went to grade school in Arizona, and so I was pretty young, even though we went to visit Oregon a lot. In fact, when I finally found out that the only thing left to learn how to play for the band was bass, I went up to Oregon and worked on my grandfather's farm to get the money to buy my first bass.
Well, what did you guys do? Rock, paper, scissors to find out who's going to play what in the band? Or how did that all work out?
No, everybody chose before me. And of course, you know, Alice can't keep track of much of anything. You know, if you hand him something, then it'll be laying there after he leaves the room. And he's always been like that. So, you know, Glenn Buxton and I were thinking, okay, well, he can't keep track of an instrument, so he's got to be the singer.
Yeah, you never know when the guitar would be left behind. Well, thank goodness you got chosen, or you sort of drew the short stick, or whatever you want to call it. You ended up bass being your calling, and you pretty much defined the sound of the Alice Cooper band through that bass and all those bass parts. I always tell people that when you come up and you jam with us on stage at an Alice Cooper concert, it really is like having that feeling of those original recordings come back to life, because that's just, it's who you are, it's what you are. And at what age did you, I gotta think that it was Paul McCartney that had some influence on the way you played, because you have such a running line, but were there other influences as well?
Well, from Paul McCartney, it had to do with just the way he could go in the middle of a song. It would come to the bridge, and all of a sudden the whole rhythm and pattern would change, and he would still make it feel like it belonged in the song. Even though I didn't learn many Beatles songs, it was more Stones for me, blues rooted, via Glenn Buxton, who is the one that showed me where the notes were on the neck and how to tune and all that. So we were a cover band. We did a lot of Kinks and Who and Stones and everything else.
I heard the Byrds. The Byrds are always a popular reference, at least in the drives to the golf course.
Well,
were they?
Our very first tour, if you want to call 3 gigs a tour, you know, we opened for the Byrds in Phoenix, Arizona, and then in Tucson, Arizona, and then came back to the big Coliseum in Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah. And what did we get from the Byrds? Alice and I are out in the audience, and they're doing their sound check, and they have guys setting their equipment up for them. I'm going, hey, we should do that. We got to get some guys.
So you got the actual concept of roadies and techs from the Byrds.
From the Byrds. But as far as my style, when I heard Paul Samwell Smith of the Yardbirds, that was like enlightening to me. All of a sudden, I realized that you can take a blues-rooted song and take the bass part anywhere. You know, people always talk about the 3 guitar players, you know, Clapton and Beck and Page, but you know, Paul Samwell Smith was equally as innovative. And when I heard that, I just set my chickens free and said, okay, I can do anything I want with any song.
That's great. I mean, I can hear a lot of that experimental letting go in songs like Halo of Flies. You know, musical sort of just journeys, I think Alice would call them when you would write them.
Well, going back to us, we played at a hot club in Phoenix, a VIP, every weekend. We were, the big fish in a little pond there. And we played with all these bands, including the Yardbirds and the Lovin' Spoonful and Bobby Fuller 4 and all that kind of stuff.
So that was your Hamburg, Germany. That was basically your 2020 club, or what was the
That's
club?
right.
Yeah.
Four sets a weekend will get you in shape, plus rehearsals all week, because we wanted to be different every weekend. We wanted to have new songs, and we wanted to keep changing the show. And so we would end up with 20 Stones songs and 20 Who songs. We go, okay, well, we can't play all of these songs, so let's make them into medleys. And we got really good at transitions. So we would do a Who medley, and we would do a Stones medley. And Halo of Flies was basically, at that point, we had gotten tired of people talking about how we couldn't play. That's why we did theatrics as a crutch, right? And so we said, okay, we're going to write a song that is going to end that. And so we called things germs. Does Alice ever use that with you?
No, but we definitely have the concept of the medley down, partly because of all your great songs that you guys wrote. We had to cram a bunch of songs. So that's where he got the idea of just doing medleys during the live show, because he was already used to doing it. So you call them what, germs?
Well, a germ could be like just say like Glenn had the intro guitar part for School's Out, and Michael had the intro guitar part that ended up being the intro of Halo of Flies. So we would just have a bunch of those. It's just an idea that hasn't developed into a song yet. So Halo of Flies is really just a medley of all the germs that we had kicking around at the time.
Nice. Well, I mean, that is kind of like the true definition of a band working together. Hey, I got this. No, I got this. No, let me put in this idea that in sort of, I have that experience with Slash's Snake Pit, because we kind of did the same thing you're talking about, but every day for a year down in Slash's studio, coming up with that album, Ain't Life Grand. But obviously you did it and had hit songs with it. I did it and I got a record that a lot of people that listen to it go, hey, that's a great record. I didn't know about it.
Wait a minute. What are you talking about? You're Ryan Roxie. So
come on now.
Hey, I know I told you this. Hold on.
Yeah,
let me honk your horn a little bit. Not only are you a great player, but got great stage presence, which everybody that's ever seen you knows. But our daughters, when they were quite young, I think Renee, our oldest daughter, was like 12 or something. And Cindy and I said, hey, do you want to go see Alice Cooper? And she said, is Ryan Roxie with them? And I said, yeah, right. Yeah, Ryan's there. Okay. She was, man, she loved your spins on stage and everything. Oh man,
I'm giving her my copy of my Slash album right now. That's fine now. I would say 3 shows.
She'll love it.
3 shows with the Byrds constitutes a world tour these days. Obviously, with all the crap that is going on, we are hunkered down. I'm taping this from Stockholm. I know that our engineer Vic is in Arkansas. You are on the Upper East Coast. How are you faring right now through all of this stuff?
Well, we were kind of worried. Cindy and I had gone to Manchester for the film festival for the Live from the Astroturf Alice Cooper film. Everything all of a sudden started hitting the fan while we were over there, and everybody's telling us, get home. And you couldn't change your flight. People were, all of the websites were crashed, and you couldn't get a phone call through to the airlines or anything. And people were paying up to £14,000 to change their ticket.
Wow.
And they were all rushing back to get to New York City into a crowd for 7 hours trying to get their luggage and everything. So Cindy and I decided we would just chill and hold off, because we found out, what people heard is the president saying they're going to cut off flights after Monday at midnight. So, but then Vice President clarified that it was going to be U.S. citizens were exempt, we could come back. So I said, well, let's stick to our original plan. We went to Liverpool. We stayed in the John Lennon suite, which had a baby grand piano in the room, which gives you an idea of how cool it was.
Mm-hmm.
And we managed to come back on a very sparse flight with social distancing was very easy on that flight. When we got to the New York airport, we breezed right through because hardly anybody was there.
Wow. So that was part of you had a premiere in the UK for a movie, because Dennis is, for those of you listening out there, Dennis is not just one of the all-time legendary bass players, I guess, of rock and roll, not just the original Alice Cooper band. You've made a statement amongst bass in your whole genre. So you're also an author with your book that you've written, and you're also now are you Snakes. There it is, right on the screen. Snakes, Guillotines, and Electric Cares. Look at our staff is top notch, and when I mean staff, I just mean Vic, because he knows how to open that stuff like no other.
You're the man.
But you are an author, but you're also now, are you executive producer, director of this Live from the Astroturf that I had the pleasure of being in? But tell us more about the movie.
Well, the way it came together is basically I heard from Chris Penn, who owns Good Records in Dallas.
Yeah.
And he kept saying, right when my book came out, he kept saying, hey, come to my record store and I'll do a book signing event for you. And, my publisher is saying, well, we should stick to bookstores and book festivals, and our record shop probably isn't going to be worthwhile, And so
they don't know that record shop. That record shop is killer.
Neither did I really, but man, Chris's persistence is infectious. So finally, we got a date, and which I didn't know was a day when you guys had a day off on your tour. He knew that, but so it started out just me saying, well, would you fly Neil Smith and Michael Bruce out there if I can talk them into it? So we planned on that. And then I found out he was hounding Alice, and I said, okay, chill on that. Let me take care of that part. And then, the stars were in alignment, and not only did we pull this thing off without a rehearsal, really. I mean,
there was definitely no rehearsal. It was very serendipitous. Everything just happened. And like you say, the stars aligning. I remember we were on tour with Motley Crue, and Alice goes, hey, you want to come down and jam a couple songs? I had no idea that it was going to end up being a movie with drone cameras and really personal interviews with Chris Penn. Chris Penn became, maybe he did it himself, like the way that Sylvester Stallone wrote Rocky for himself. I think Christopher Penn actually wrote that movie with you guys as the subject, but knowing that he was going to be the sort of protagonist, I guess the hero of the film, because he really comes across great.
Well, he just is the hero, but no, you're giving it way too much credit. It was all flying by the seat of your pants. I mean, Michael and Neil and I did a sound check, which basically was getting the amps working and getting the drums set up the way he wanted. We didn't even run through all the songs. We weren't even sure what songs we were going to do. And then the next night, of course, you sat in, and we hadn't played a note together before that. So the thing is that once Chris Penn realized that he's going to have the original Alice Cooper group play in his tiny record store, which is actually big by record store, a great record store. It's wonderful. Actually, he's moved to another location, and because of the situation now, he's doing online. If you want to order records from Good Records, you can get pretty much anything you want sent to your home. But
well, he's
anyway,
watching the live stream. I invite you on, Chris Penn, right now. If you want to come on, just
yeah,
stick
come
with
on,
it,
Chris.
because I know you're probably watching. You're probably creeping around the comments board somewhere. But I'm enjoying hearing the story about how it all came together. And now it actually got released into, you've done a lot of premieres. I was at the New York premiere with Calico Cooper and Chuck Garrick, and we were able to premiere it. And that was the first actual movie premiere that I've been a part of. So where have you done these premieres, and how is the success? What's the plan for the movie now?
Well, we've Live from the Astroturf has won 5 awards in film festivals. We've had it in Phoenix, Detroit. I know I'm going to forget Dallas, of course. Manchester, New York City was a biggie, Hollywood. So it's been all over the place in film festivals and gotten extremely good rave reviews. But I'm also plugging another film that I made called Cold Cold Coffin, and that won Best Music Video at the Los Angeles Motion Picture Film Festival just recently.
Well, I remember that was the film. It was like sort of a double feature. And it was the Cold Cold Coffin video that you would show, and then Live at the Astroturf. And who else stars in Cold Cold Coffin with you in that video?
Oh, yeah. So Calico Cooper. And, you think, oh, my God, what? Really? How did that happen? Well, first of all, we were looking, we wanted to have a dancer, and we wanted somebody that would play a young gold digging wife. And I'm playing the older eccentric who owns a castle, right?
Calico Cooper was born for that role.
Exactly. So we were checking out the New York City just full of dancers, but then I'm going, wait a minute, you know what? Cheryl could do it, but Calico is, as you know, almost a clone of Cheryl on stage when she's dancing. So I said, oh, wait a minute.
They're both very animated. I will definitely give you that. And sorry, Calico, I know you're listening. So you are not a gold digger. You're just born to play that role.
Oh, are you kidding? Calico is wonderful. My God. So there's a scene in Cold Cold Coffin where we're supposed to be getting married, right?
Okay.
And so the priest is there reading the vows and everything. And so the camera is over my shoulder with her expression. And then the camera is over her shoulder with my expression. But while the camera's behind her aimed at me, she's crossing her eyes and sticking out her tongue and everything. And I'm trying.
Yeah, that's classic. Yeah. Well, this is what leads me to my next sort of, I'm interested in it, and maybe people are actually interested as I am, but I'm definitely close to it because you raised the money for this Cold Cold Coffin through crowdfunding. You went through a Kickstarter, and I'm doing a Kickstarter right now with my guitar lessons. So I'm trying to reach my goal through that. You guys, how did it work out with funding the Cold Cold Coffin video? And was it as hard, or was it easier than you expected with all these types of things these days?
Way harder. In fact, I'm still not done shipping all of the items. And so you've got to be better than me at it. But we had, well, first of all, I had like a warehouse full of tour booklets from 1973 and stuff like that.
It pays to be a hoarder, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I guess I am a hoarder, but I don't look at it that way. I just look at it like when it comes time to sort through stuff and throw stuff out, I'd rather write a song.
Yeah. And you never know, someday you might need that tour book from 1970, which it actually came in handy for this, right?
Yeah, it worked out great. I mean, we shipped all kinds of stuff. Chris Penn is, everybody says, thank God for Chris Penn. Well, that's because the packaging on everything he does is amazing, which he does, he says, in tribute to the packaging that the Alice Cooper group, did the wallet for $1 Billion Babies and the school desk and all that kind of stuff.
You guys are known for good packaging, but then again, back in the 70s, the packaging and the whole presentation of the vinyl album was art. It really was. I mean, I'm really lucky to have a guy like Scotty Hagen over at Bellyache Records that feels that same sort of thing. But
you do.
You had some classic packaging, and of course, Live from the Astroturf. Yeah, I just, of course, it just dawned on me. It started out as like a 3-song EP, right, or 4-song, and then it expanded into larger and larger projects, and then it became a movie. I love it.
Right. Well, what happened is, first of all, Chris Penn had bands come and play at the store regularly, and he had green AstroTurf on the stage, but he repainted the store to go with the pink panties on the cover of Snakes, Guillotines, Electric Chairs, my book. And he got pink AstroTurf. And so, as you saw when you got there, and so all of these things add up to just, he's giving fans what he imagines he would want to get. But, he said that our night was the first time that the recording came out for the entire show. He said everybody else he's ever recorded, something would mess up halfway through the set and they would lose the bass or whatever, I
kind of feel like that with this podcast, with this live stream podcast, because I just looked down at my recorder going, I hope this makes it all the way through, because this is a good interview and I definitely want to slap the good audio on it and stuff. But yeah, so maybe you're our good luck charm for good audio.
Okay, I'm raising the bar for you. Well, the Beatles raised the bar for album packaging.
Yeah.
But like they did so many things like that. But we also had Warner Brothers, who were really good at coming through when it came to doing something that cost a little extra. Now, to get back to good records, so Chris Penn last minute calls his friend Stephen Gaddis, who is who made the film, right, and says, I'm not going to believe this happened on Monday morning. Can you get down here and just do some footage for my own personal archive? And he did. But then when, about a week later, Stephen called Chris and said, what, this came out too good. We've got a film here. Wow. So they started working on it. The hardest part of making the film look as good as it did is that Chris Penn had this bright idea of using all red lights. And as you know, that's the hardest thing to photograph.
I've seen the movie Seven down in the S&M part, that one David Fincher film. I don't know why that just came to me, but that weird lighting. Yeah, nothing ever comes out that good.
Right. Everything looks red. But so then the sound came out good because Justin Cordelou and Bob Ezrin mixed the tracks for us. So. Nice. So it sounds like a live band. You've seen the film. So, I mean, I've seen it, probably about at least 7 times in theaters. And a couple of times, man, they had it cranked to where, you could feel the bass in your chest. It was great. Actually, Manchester had it cranked nicely. It sounds like a real band. It really does.
See the movie. I lived it. See, I've been waiting to say that in an interview for so long. I didn't see it.
Oh man, it was so great to have you show up and last minute. The illusion is that we just show up and we do our thing and it sounds good, right? But no, you had to talk to Michael Bruce about which parts he was going to play, because a lot of the parts that he normally plays are the ones that you play, right?
Yeah, it was a little bit flying by the seat of my pants, but because I've been in both those positions for as many years, and because I've been playing your songs for as many years as I have with Alice Cooper, I kind of knew, okay, well, if he's going to go for this inversion of this chord, I'll just go the upper register. And it worked out. It really was one of those magical nights. And I'm glad that it turned into all this. When is the public going to be able to see?
Well, we're working on it. We have to talk, the Alice camp into helping us out. And we have to we're trying to find a deal with Netflix or something. So we've been working very hard to make something happen that'll get it out to more than the expected Alice Cooper fan base, who are all wonderful, and they will get it as soon as we can make that happen. But we have bigger ideas in mind to help spread the news of this film to more of a mass audience. We'll see.
Awesome.
I mean, once the licensing to be able to use the music in film festivals runs out, that'll kind of move us on to a next level of deadlines, and getting it out there.
I hope for two reasons that people get to see, or the movie comes out on a national platform. One, the people deserve to see it. They need to see this, 3/4 of the original Alice Cooper band on stage kicking ass. And two, I'm going to get more than a slap on the back and a free Mexican restaurant meal out of Christopher Penn. How about that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. He knows where the good ones are in Dallas. Wow.
Oh, he took me to one, but that's what I've gotten paid so far. So we shall see.
Well, me too. Well, actually, I'm in the red, but that's okay. He owes me a more Mexican dinners. So okay. So in the film, you see the part where we had finished doing 6 songs, and then we go in the back room, and you're like, "Hey, we got to do Elected," and we're all going, "What? We haven't played Elected in like." Alice said 20 years. I know it was more than that. I mean, we haven't played Elected in like 40 years at least. And so we're like, oh my God, oh geez. And
I'm not sure if that was me. I think Caesar Sabatini, our stage manager for the Alice Cooper band.
Oh, Caesar wanted it?
He takes credit for that. I'm not entirely sure. Don't quote me.
Okay.
Don't quote me. I think he takes credit for it. Hey, guys, you got to do an encore. Go do it. And all of a sudden, we just went out there and did a couple more songs, which was cool because that ended it. It ended possibly a very short set to be, lengthened into a movie.
Right. But I love what Neil said later, because in the movie, you see, we come back out to do Elected, and we're all standing there, and Alice says, look, everybody's waiting to see who's going to start it. And then when we played the song and we went back into the back room, Neil said exactly what I was thinking at the time. He said, we hit the first chord, and then he said to himself, what the F happens next? But of course, once Michael started his Dolly Dagger riff, then you can hear Neil, the very first bass drum beat is a little hesitant, but once he figures that out, then we're off and running.
All right, we're gonna have to have him on the show, and you know what, a drummer's edition. Maybe have Neil and Glenn solo on at the same time. We do get a little bit. Oh, I know, but we do get a little bit guitar geek here. And if it's okay with you, before I open up the forum to have people come on and maybe ask a few questions for you, because we do this live stream, I do like to bring some people on if they have some questions, maybe, get on screen with you if they want. Maybe Vic can put up that invite up on the screen there. If you are listening to this at a regular podcast, whether it's Spotify or Apple, you're going, this does nothing for me. What do you mean? But all I'm saying is I'd like to get a little bit into your bass gear, and which has become this iconic sound, especially the bass guitar, because whatever that bass was that you recorded all those hits with, it's become quite iconic and sought after. And people always ask me, like, what is that bass? Where can I get one? And I think you had a custom model sort of reproduction of that exact bass. I want to hear about that.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, right now? Okay.
Yeah, right. We could do it in another podcast, I guess, but no time like the present. Let's do it.
Okay, so I don't have time to Google anything. All right.
Well, when did you talk to us about that bass? What do you call it? Do you have a name for it? Everybody has a name for their favorite guitar.
Well, the one that I use now is the $1 billion bass. It's the Fender Jazz 1970. I had three 1970 Fender jazz basses. So guess which year the Alice Cooper Group could afford equipment?
Just take a quick guess. Early 70s.
Yeah, 1970. Exactly 1970.
But that wasn't the only year.
Well, the first Pretties for You was my airline bass, which was my very first bass, which was like a beginner's bass. That after I went to Oregon and worked on Grandpa's farm, Glenn Buxton went down to Montgomery Ward with me, and we found this short scale beginner's bass, and that's what I used on the Pretties for You album. Pretties for You. Okay. And then for Easy Action, and few people know this, but word is getting out a little bit. We had been in an accident, either that or there was a couple of years along there where every time you walked out of your hotel room, you'd come back and your instrument would be stolen. And anyway, whatever it was, I showed up at the studio and I didn't have a bass. So David Briggs, who was producing the album, said, well, there's an equipment closet over there. Go see if there's anything in there. And Glenn Buxton followed me. And I opened the thing, and there was a Hofner bass. And I go, oh, God, a Hofner. I don't know. And Glenn's like, oh, cool, a Hofner, trying to, encourage me. Yeah. So I take it out.
Hyping you up.
And I opened the case, and I go, oh, man, a Hofner. And he's like, man, this is just what you needed, and all that. And I picked it up and I turned it over, and on the back it said the Cow Sills.
Okay.
I recorded Easy Action with the Cow Sills Hofner bass.
Wow. See,
yeah.
Does anybody know that story? Has it gotten out yet? Or is this please give me an exclusive? Come on.
No, it's confirmed in recent years. May Pang knows Paul from the Cow Sills. And I got her to email him because I wanted confirmation that they stenciled the name on the back of their instruments. And he replied, I had the reply. He said, yes, they did.
So it's authenticated. I love it.
Authenticated.
So one of the albums that I have lots of, I play lots of songs off of all the time. We actually, when we recorded The Eyes of Alice Cooper, we used Love It to Death as a blueprint. What was that bass? Because that had so many iconic songs. What was that bass?
Well, I started out with my Gibson EBO. Cindy calls it the Frog because I spray painted it green and glued mirrors all over it. It's the one that's on the back cover of Love It to Death album. And I started out using that as soon as we went in the studio. The first song we did was I'm 18. And immediately Bob Ezrin said, we've got a problem getting a good sound on the bass. And that's because using a pick with that bass, I used to use extra heavy gauge flat wound labella strings. And, but the E string would be real boomy compared to the other three strings. So we ended up renting a Fender bass. And I'm like, oh my God, now I'm playing a bass that's foreign to me. And so, you do what you got to do. And on the spot, I switched to a Fender bass, rented. And then...
have you always been a pick player or a finger player? Because honestly, I'm going to get some street cred for talking about bass on the In the Trenches podcast this episode. Because it's always guitar players that I have on. But you're my first bass player, I believe, that I've had on the show. So
all right.
I think I'm asking a legitimate question. Are you
absolutely. Let's face it, bass fingers, even like James Jamerson, the Hook, right? He only used one finger on all those Motown songs. One finger.
Get out of here.
I started out a thumber. I think Brian Wilson is still the only thumber left in the world. No, not slapping it, picking with your thumb. That's why Fender basses used to have the finger rest under the strings as well as above the strings. But anyway, so then I used my fingers when we were doing the VIP club, 4 sets a weekend. And then we had some other gigs, and I ended up wearing the skin off of my fingers, right? They
Right.
all the way, all no skin down to the meat, you know.
Wow.
And so I started using a pick. And then as when we got into writing our own material, I liked, you know, Mr. Lou, you know, the surf song. So, you know, I'd like to do stuff like that, and I like to do things like that. So I started writing parts with the pick that I've heard bassists play with their fingers. You know, it can be done, but it just doesn't sound like the record. So I kind of decided, okay, well, that's my style. I use a pick, even though bass sounds meatier and more even with fingers. And my Gibson frog bass may have worked if I used my fingers, but we wanted that percussive pick sound. That was my
That was
my
part of the
style
whole
back
band.
then. And so I used the Gibson on some of the songs. I can't remember which. I could probably, if I really listened to the album again.
You could hear it.
Yeah, but then after that, the rental for that Fender bass, by the end of the session,
Expired.
the rental was far greater than me just buying the bass. So basically they said, no, you can have it for the sales price and it's yours. And I go, okay. So
and that ended up being a very iconic bass for you then. Amazing.
I did not want to play a Fender. Everybody else had a Fender for the look. I loved the Gibson, and I wanted to be different. But the reliability, you know, another bassist said to me once, and I think it's perfect, that you could commit an axe murder with a Fender bass and it'll still be in tune. But
it's good, man. I never heard that one before.
It's reliability. It's
kind of like the way I feel with Gibson through a Marshall. So you always have a Fender.
Right.
What was the amp of choice back in those days, or what is it still the amp of choice? Is it Ampeg or is it?
Well, acoustic amplifiers started out in Los Angeles, and they endorsed two groups at the time: the Doors, and because of good management, us. and the acoustic guitar amps were pretty crappy. They didn't sound good.
Well, the acoustic bass amps looked like mini PAs. I remember those from the 70s.
It was the first Reflex cabinet. It was the first Reflex, and that was the workhorse. That was the bass amp to have back then. It had wheels on the back. You could tilt it back and roll it out, and the you know, that was the workhorse, and that was a great amp. I mean, we did outdoor festivals, and after the gig, people would say, you know, we were walking up to the festival, and the only thing we could hear at one point was the bass. And then when we got closer, we could hear other instruments. You know, bass travels that way. But one time I had a problem with that amp, though. You know, we used to do the big Feather Storm in our show.
Well, you basically took a pillow, right? And you just took and you cut the pillow and up, and feathers went everywhere, right?
Well, we blew the feathers with a CO2 tank, which you know, came unknowingly. Were donated by Holiday Inns across the country.
Unknowingly.
So, yeah, like Michael Bruce said, the reason we stopped doing the Feather Storm is when Holiday Inn went to foam pillows. But anyway, so one time we got set up and the amp was not sounding as good as it used to, and I'm like, man, this is like boom, boom. So it's all muffled, you know. So our roadie, Ronnie Volz, I said, well, let's open it up. We took the grill cloth off, and in the bottom of the amp was full of feathers because the CO2 tank apparently could blow those feathers right through the grill cloth. So after that, regularly, there was a ton of feathers inside the amp.
So you have actually bird feathers to thank for the actual live sound of the Alice Cooper band back in the 70s. It was a factor. All right? Yeah,
that's the secret ingredient. Well, it's out there now.
That's my exclusive, all right? And I'm sticking to it.
Okay.
Jeez.
Well, bassists now, if they want to copy that, they'll have to use foam.
Well, that's the whole thing, because what you're telling me is that you guys were proficient on your instruments. You guys had rehearsed. You guys knew your stuff, but you also always combined image, theater, pizzazz with the show. And I know that part of the look of the Alice Cooper Band was what freaked out parents, endeared young kids to like, these are my guys. And who was responsible for that sort of look of the Alice Cooper Band back in those early days? I think I know.
Well, in the very early days, it was the women's section at thrift stores. Yeah, I'm not kidding. And then, of course, my wife, Cindy, who is Neil Smith's sister, or Neil Smith is her brother, I think she'd prefer me to say. Everybody calls her Neil Smith's sister. Yeah, so when she came to live with the band in Hollywood, we had decided we wanted to, let me say exactly when it started. We had played at our very first gig. The poster said the Naz, which was the name of our band, not Todd Rundgren's Naz. That's why we changed ours.
So you had to.
But our very first gig as Alice Cooper, even though the poster still said the Naz, was Blue Cheer, the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and Alice Cooper. And we were in this room in Orange, I think it was Orange County, California or something. And I was looking around. I'm going, okay, there's 3 guys in Blue Cheer. There's about, 27 guys in Nitty Gritty. I think there was about 6. And then the 5 of us. I said, look at
5. Sorry,
we were all standing together. No, that's okay. We're all standing together, and I'm like, look, every single musician has Levi's on. Let's make a pact right now. We'll never wear Levi's on stage again. We got to be different. And so that started it. And then we started doing more sparkly things. And of course, Cindy has always, and to this day, been the sparkle queen. So we said, okay, let's do chrome outfits, and let's do this and that. Let's do sequins. And she was able to track down these fabrics that weren't easy to find in those days. And then she had her sewing machine, and we would have meetings. All of our work went into the music. The theatrics was just kind of a no-brainer. That was just, we could think of anything on the spot, but
right.
But we would think, okay, well, our next album, let's get kind of this sort of a theme, and our next show, let's have this sort of a theme. And Cindy would work with each guy. She'd make drawings, she'd talk to Glenn and listen to his preferences. Him and I both like shorter sleeves. That's why you see me in pictures where my jacket looks like it's too short for me.
Well, because you don't want it to get in the way of the instrument. I'm assuming.
I like the feel of skin against the bass. It grips better. And also I like Frankenstein. So it's got that. Clothes are too short, right?
Of course.
But so then it would always be, when's the deadline? Well, the deadline's like yesterday, So Cindy would go in her room and stay up all night. And then the morning she'd miraculously come out with all of these outfits, That's exactly what she did. Even like the white satin suits on $1 Billion Babies album.
Oh yeah.
She made all of those from scratch. She was up all night, and then she was too exhausted to go to the David Bailey photo session. She really wanted to go, but she crashed.
She's tired. She was sewing all night.
Yeah.
Cindy Smith Dunaway and a sewing machine, just like sort of pioneering rock and roll fashion. Man, I mean, these are the type of things. I feel you've given me enough exclusives on this podcast so far that I feel I need to wrap this one up, but it leaves the door open for another time for you to come on with me for us to do another podcast. Can I get maybe a hell yeah? Can I get yes? A confirmation that you'll come back?
Absolutely. Love to.
Because I said I wanted to open up the door for a few people coming in to ask some questions, because I know they're very curious and happy to be on the same screen as you as well. But I'm going to wrap up the regular podcast, and I'll tell everybody out there that's listening on a regular podcast, you got to come and check out the YouTube version, because we're going to have a little extra Q&A on it. But for now, until the next time, I will say goodbye to everyone that's listening, and we'll see you next time on In the Trenches podcast with Ryan Roxie. And boom, that's when the ending will happen, and I will bring us back for some Q&A, special bonus Q&A, Dennis. Thank you very much. By the way, just before I cut it off on the regular podcast, how are people going to get in touch with you? How can people find you? I know that you're on Instagram as Cold Cold Coffin, but what is there a better way? Let us know.
Yeah. The better way is just go to Dennis Dunaway on either of my Facebook pages, and that's me. Message me, private message.
There you go. Open invitation from Dennis Dunaway. Now we're going to open it up here on the bonus Q&A for In the Trenches podcast live stream. Who do we got on? There it is.
Hello.
How you doing, Fedrock?
Hi, Dennis. Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Oh, it's so great to see you again. I just want to say a quick hello and thank you again for having me in London at the O2 Arena. We saw last October.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Actually, I just saw the O2 Arena just last week.
Well, yeah, I know.
We were in London again.
I know. And I should have been there, but I am in Italy and we are locked down. So,
yeah, me too.
Yeah, no, I know. So I hope the next time you'll be here, you'll be in the UK. I hope to be there and see you and Cindy.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we hope to be back as soon as we can.
Very cool, man. Thank you, Fedrock. Anybody else would like to come on? Vic, are you? There it is, Michael McVeigh. What's happening, brother?
Hey, Michael.
Hey, man. Hey, Dennis. I had the pleasure of meeting you through my good friend Richie Scarlett. It was a week before Glenn passed away, and it's been a while. But it's funny you brought up the suit that your wife, you said, made. Can you hear me?
Yep. You cut out for a second there.
I was going to ask you, do you still have that suit?
Do you still have that suit that Cindy made for the silver one?
She still has most of those costumes, but like back in the old days, Alice would say to me, I think it's time to come up with a new tour because our clothes are rotting off. Well, put them in a trunk for 40 years and then look at, so now the chrome is gray, but she still has the majority of those costumes, and she's actually doing a book now that will have to do with the costumes, how she made them, and a lot of other things. Cindy used to write letters home faithfully, and she has all of those letters of all of these things that we had forgotten even happened, interesting things. So she's working on a book.
I mean, I was actually going to ask you to borrow one of those, not borrow, but get one of those suits for my own Kickstarter campaign. But this sounds like a whole new other Kickstarter campaign that Cindy can do for her book. Trust me, those people will buy those suits and they will wear them and actually, live in the moment in that suit. Let's bring someone else on. What do you say, Vic? Hello, Frankie.
Oh, hi.
How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Dennis, I was wondering, was there ever a time when you were just traveling around and waiting for things to hit where you started wondering, where you were doubting, is this really the right thing? Is this working out, or maybe it's not working?
No. I was the cheerleader for the band, when we would have a down night, in fact, the night that we played in New York City where Bob Ezrin was in the audience, there was hardly anybody there. We were we were tuning up on the stairwell of Max's Kansas City because the dressing room was full of empty beer bottles. You couldn't even get in the door. And everybody's like, let's not even play this gig. Nobody's here, you know. And I'm like, no, remember, guys, the smaller the crowd, the bigger the rumors. And I remember Glenn Buxton saying, well, why don't we not play and start a rumor that we did? But we thought, we were surprised when Pretty's for You didn't set the world on fire. You know, Frank Zappa had played it for the Beatles before it was released, and they said they liked it or whatever. That's what we heard. And then we thought Easy Action would set the world on fire. So it was, you know, we believed that we were going to make it, but we were just frustrated with the rest of the world, you know, agreeing, especially since everywhere we went, people were trying to beat us up in the parking lot.
Well, you know what? You passed the torch of rock with that. It happened to me and my bands as well. But the smaller the crowd, the bigger the rumors. I think we're actually we're living it because we're working our way through the In the Trenches podcast as well. Lily, how you doing? Welcome to the thing. You unmute your mic and say
hi, Lily.
So I have a question for Dennis. So you've experienced so much in your life and you have achieved so much, but I wondered if there's still anything left that you'd like to do or that you'd like to have achieved that you haven't done yet?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've always had the same goal to write a song that's different than any song that's ever been done. You know, I don't know how I became an author. It's like, really? I'm an author? I don't know. I mean, I go to New York City, well, when you weren't homebound, and go to St. Martin's Press, and I'd meet people that, you know, were authors that were like really big deal authors. You know, I'm like, hello, I wrote a book about Benjamin Franklin. And I'm like, well, I wrote a book about throwing chickens at an audience, you know, but somehow we're in the same boat. Art, I haven't done anything in dancing, but I want to get back to music now. I want to really dig deep into writing some new songs. So that's what I'm going to say.
The next time you come on the podcast, Dennis, we're going to talk a little bit more about Blue Coupe. We're going to talk about the current stuff that you're actually writing. I know that my buddy Stefan, and you know him, he wants you desperately to come on to Coffee Talk. And I told him that, well, you know what? Dennis is dipping his toe into the live stream stuff right now. But if this goes well, and I think it has, he's going to come on the show. So hopefully we'll get you on Coffee Talk, and then I can have you back on there one more time. I wanted to get Dave.
Yeah, but you and Stefan are always talking about all these people that I don't know who they are.
Well, okay, you know, me and you are going to sit back and have a private talk about Bruce Kulick, because for some reason it always goes back to Bruce Kulick.
Oh yeah, I've got a Bruce Kulick story, so I'll save that.
Save it for the next podcast, because we really need a headline. All right.
Yeah. Okay. You got
Hold on. This is Dave R. He's part of the Roxy Guitar Army team that we're doing this Kickstarter together. He's part of
cool.
He's
all
on
right.
the team. But I know he's also a big fan of you and your music. So, Dave, ask away.
Cool. I do have a question for Dennis, but I do also want to say I love the smaller the crowd, the bigger the rumor. We definitely need to use that more. That rings a lot of bells. Now, what I want to know is, obviously, you were in the original Alice Cooper band. If you hadn't been in a band, or maybe you'd been in a different band, or maybe you were a sideman or something like that, who would you want to have played for? Who have you seen and gone, okay, if I wasn't in Alice Cooper, I'd love to have been in that instead?
Oh my God. Well, I don't know. You know, back in the 60s and 70s, I was in love with the Ikettes, so maybe Tina Turner. No, let's see. It would have to be somebody that's progressive and avant-garde. I don't know, maybe somebody like Nick Cave or something like that.
Yeah, that seems like one of your perfect guys to play with. A bit arty, but, you know, a bit dark, a bit mysterious.
Yeah, that's the key. Dark. I like dark.
Oh, hi.
Hello, how you doing? What's happening? You have a question for Dennis?
I'm just sitting in the parking lot right now just to watch this.
Well, thank you for doing. But you act like you're actually working as a air control systems, officer.
I
know.
Hey, what's with the last
name?
Better
audio.
What's with the last name?
Actually, I kind of picked that up from Alice, and a lot of people started figuring that out from me. So
you pronounce it Fernier?
I do it as Fernier instead of Fernier.
Okay.
So, but weren't you on the Paranormal album for Alice?
Yeah. I did Sound of A, Fireball. The original group played on Rats, which is Tommy Hendrickson's song. Yeah, that's Neil and Michael and I, and Tommy, of course, who wrote it.
Of course, Tommy.
And then the original group did Genuine American Girl, and then we did for me and for you and all your friends, me and all my friends. Alice changed the title. What the heck did he change it to now?
I know, right? That's awesome.
Yeah, so we played on that, and we did a couple of tracks for the next album as well.
Nice. So let's save it for the next podcast. We'll talk about the next album. We'll talk about Blue Coupe. We're gonna kind of wrap things up right now because we have been going on for over an hour. I've taken an hour of your time, but I think it's been an hour well spent for everybody that's been watching. And if you didn't get on the live stream podcast this time, I promise I will do my best to get you on the next time. I just wanted to thank Dennis Dunaway, bassist for Alice Cooper, Blue Coupe, and so much more for coming on the In the Trenches podcast with Ryan Roxie. Any parting words that you have, Mr. Dennis?
Well, everybody hang in there. Music is a wonderful thing to do when you're homebound. I mean, if you want to go on a journey, just put on your headphones and put on some good music. And Ryan's got plenty out there. I'm sure you all have it. Blue Coupe have 11 even, so I'm trying to be as creative as possible, but I think one tip comes from Cindy, my wife. She says she doesn't want to be homebound and just wear her jammies all day. So she says, dress up like you're going out and then you'll feel better. And I think she's right.
I think I need to go put on some pants then and continue with my evening. But thank you so much, Dennis.
Thanks, Ryan.
And thank you, Cindy. Man. I know you're in there somewhere. I'm going to thank my wife, Bianca, for hanging in there, bringing me some wine when I needed it. But most of all, thanks to all of you for hanging out with us this last little jaunt that we've had. I don't know why I've used words like pizzazz and jaunt. I don't know.
I like pizzazz. I like pizzazz better than jaunt.
Well, you know what? I got a verbal confirmation that you're going to be on again on In the Trenches podcast. Right, so I'm good with that. And you know what, guys? Thank you very much for watching. We will see you next time on In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie. Good night. Enjoy the ride.
Trenches with Ryan Roxie.
Yeah.